I don't think he should join Reform UK. Far from it. I think he should set up his own party, to be honest. And I think he'd get quite a few people.
How do you solve a, in inverted commas, a problem like Tommy Robinson? After Elon Musk's dramatic intervention seemingly ending his support for Nigel Farage as Reform UK leader, the Brexit king is doubling down, purging his party of anyone who has spoken up for the political prisoner. Now, I should stress again that Tommy told me directly, face to face, when I spent 3 hours with him in prison last month, that he doesn't want to join Reform. He simply wants Nigel's attacks to end. But Farage is having none of that, defending the decision to effectively axe Howard Cox, the brilliant Fairfield campaigner who was Reform's candidate for London mayor.
What's going on in your party? Howard Cox says he was forced out because he had some support for Tommy Robinson. Are you purging supporters of him?
No, Howard Cox made a silly comment, the whole country is run by immigrants. Well, that's clearly not true. Yes, he supports Tommy Robinson. Well, look, fine. If people want to like the guy, that's fine. But don't advocate that he should join our party, because let Robinson do what the hell he wants to do. We're a political party and never the twain shall meet.
Is that a deal breaker now? So any members of your party who say, I support Tommy Robinson, will be ejected?
Well, no, you can support him. I don't think he should be in solitary confinement. I think that's wrong. I think he's been dealt with very harshly, but he is a repeated lawbreaker over many, many years. Violence, entering America on a false passport. It's a list as long as your arm, and that doesn't suit a political party. So people can say, look, we admire what he said about grooming gangs or what else, but please don't tell me he should be part of Reform. That doesn't work.
I only ask because last week in Leicester, 2 of those individuals in the audience shouted at Lee Anderson, we want Tommy Robinson, or showed support. Why aren't those guys being chucked out of your conferences?
Well, I think Lee made it perfectly clear, shut up or get out. And 998 didn't say that.
Now, what's fascinating is that Howard Cox's departure was actually sparked, according to Nigel, by something he said right here on Outspoken. So given his unhappiness with Nigel about what he said, I wanted to play you Howard's comments on this show in their full context. So you can watch and judge for yourself if he said anything out of line. I certainly don't think so. Watch.
Reporting of this is that Sky News have since deleted the videos that you've shown already in your opening monologue. And I have to ask the question, why? Why would they delete videos showing Muslim men running around a roundabout in their cars the way they were and stabbing tyres and carrying weapons? Why would they delete those videos? It's very sinister in my view.
It is incredibly sinister.
And probably under pressure from the government. It wouldn't surprise me if they had someone actually speak to them in their shell-like ears and saying, look, I don't think that's a good thing. You are encouraging issues of actually, the fact is, let's face it, we are being ruled by immigrants at the moment in time, what is happening at the moment in time, and that's what we need to do. And I agree with Jacob Rees-Mogg, for example, that immigration must be halted completely. We must stop. And that if we can do that right away now, we might actually get on top of what the problem we're seeing right across in all of our major cities.
Now, I think the vast majority of Brits would agree with what Howard Cox had to say then. Was it really a justification to boot him out, or at least encourage his exit from Reform UK? What is clear to me is that there is now a very obvious split on the right as to how to deal with the issues of Islam, mass immigration, Pakistani rape gangs, and yes, Tommy Robinson. And I want to show you the two sides of the Tommy Robinson debate, because when it comes to Douglas Murray, I think he's a figure who gets it right.
Tommy Robinson is a man from a working class background in Luton. There are many things to be said in favour of him and what he's done. There's many things to be said criticising some of his tactics and some of his words and much more. But essentially, he is one of a quite large number, actually, not to be underestimated, a large number of working class people in this country who who saw this happen to relatives of theirs, who had girls in their families who were drugged and raped by Muslim gangs. And when they went to the police, they didn't get any help. When they went to the council, they didn't get any help. When they went to their MPs, generally they didn't get any help. If they organised a protest movement, so-called anti-fascist groups would immediately say, far right, because, of course, if you're working class in our country and you don't like the mass rape of young white girls, you're, of course, necessarily must be a Nazi. All of this was done to make it utterly impossible for anybody to discuss this, and particularly to crack down as hard as possible on anyone who was white and working class and felt voiceless. And instead of giving these people any sympathy or any hearing, most of the media, most of the political class turned away.
Now, I think Douglas Murray gets it right. Someone who gets it wrong is Patrick Christys, now of GB News. This is what he had to say about Tommy Robinson. Watch.
Appointment of Tommy Robinson in this loose role as advisor on grooming gangs. A, what advice do you need on grooming gangs? B, do you want that advice coming from a man like Tommy Robinson? It's not a good look for the party whatsoever. Frankly, it's not a good look for society, and I do really think this just demonstrates, actually, that there is an undercurrent, not this subtle level of racism that's been levelled at UKIP in the past. I think you could argue that this is now much more overt.
Then there's Tommy himself, who is no longer holding back about Nigel's attacks, with this dramatic intervention from behind bars.
When you're in prison, small things are big things, and this isn't even a small thing. And they're big things because you sit and stew about them all day. And to say last week I was disappointed, or this week I've been disappointed with Nigel Farage is an understatement. But I've gone from disappointment to outraged, as he's now lied on national radio. He's made the allegation that I have a criminal conviction for violence against women.
Robinson's talked about this, but he has a criminal record, a list as long as your arm. Violence against women.
It's an out-and-out lie. Nigel's a big voice, a serious voice. He gets taken seriously. People believe what he says. And he, time and time again now this week, he's took his opportunity to defame me, to slander me, to lie about me in a week where he sat. And I watched because he accused Kemi of lying about him, because Kemi said he played with a few numbers on his membership scheme. It's a bit of a different lie to making the ultimate accusation that I am violent against women.
What's frustrating for me about this is I think it could soon erupt into a full-on civil war, but it is entirely unnecessary. As you know, as loyal viewers know, I am a critical friend of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, and Elon Musk. Oh, not to mention, by the way, some Tories too, Liz Truss and Robert Jenrick. For us to save Britain, the right needs to be attacking the rape gang and paedophile apologists in government, not each other. And I will give so much credit to Reform UK. Look at the brilliant address Lee Anderson gave at the weekend.
Look who we've got running the country. Free Gear Kia. Rachel from accounts. You know that one, don't you? We've got that famous no-brainer, Angela Rayner. Mad Miliband, the net zero fanatic. And let's not forget our very own mastermind, David Lammy. Yeah. It's not meant to be funny, this thing, you know. He's a proper charmer, isn't he? Like, listen, I hope nobody's filming this. But keep this one to yourselves. We've got over 6,000 villages in the United Kingdom. And if you took the village idiot from every village, right, and put them 6,000 village idiots into Tottenham, David Lammy would still be the village idiot.
Look, that is brilliant stuff. And I totally understand why Reform UK is on the march. But here's the thing, they cannot be arrogant because there are serious challenges ahead, especially with news that Musk has now been advised by Dominic Cummings, who is, let's be honest, one of the biggest critics of Farage on the right. Watch.
What's your thoughts on Reform UK and Farage's re-entry into politics?
it's sort of depressing, basically, I think, because Farage is basically like Tory MPs at heart. His goal is just to be on the Stupid Today programme on the BBC. You know, he's not actually there to get anything done. So he's there to kind of profit from people being upset with the system, but he doesn't have real answers for what to do. And he always surrounds himself with useless characters who can't build anything. So the party itself isn't really going anywhere. It tops out at like roughly 15%. There's 15% of the country, like pretty much like Farage, and hate everybody else. And he can get that 15% this year. He got 15% in 2015. But it can't. But it's never going to solve the actual problem.
And what Elon Musk has done is move the Overton window. Because no matter how hard the MSM might try, Tommy Robinson can no longer be ignored. And there's this great moment on Sly News that proved it.
Nicole, thank you so much for joining us here on the programme.
Thank you. Free Tommy Robinson!
And
Cue awkward silence. And it is that awkward silence throughout the establishment, throughout the mainstream media. So let's start bursting their bubble some more. Now, the uncancelled interview. And the man at the centre of the drama, Howard Cox of the Fair Fuel campaign, previously a Reform UK candidate at the general election, and of course the man who the party chose to stand against Sadiq Khan in the London mayoralty, joins me now. And Howard, look, number one, I was quite shocked to find out that it was your appearance on Outspoken back in August, which actually is being used as justification by Nigel Farage as to why you left the party. And Alex Wilson, who is the Reform UK member on the London Assembly, actually posted on X in regards to this, saying, Howard, I am sorry you've left us. We were a great team in the London election and you did a cracking job in Dover in just a few short weeks. However, you asked for evidence of the quote Nigel has attributed to you. Here it is. And then he posted the screenshot of you appearing on Outspoken. Now, at the time, did you get any pushback, Howard, from people within the party in terms of what you had said to me?
No, hello, Dan. Good to see you back, and lovely pictures of your family. Beautiful pictures. Now,
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Look, yeah, Happy New Year, my friend. The thing is, you hit the nail on the head, is that at that time when I said it, no one said a word. Not a word. No one said a peep to me. Mind you, no one has said a peep to me since I stood for election or said I stood for London Mayor, either of the elections I stood for. No one from head office since Zia has joined and he's running the office, the headquarters, has spoken to me. It's very disrespectful, but hey, that's politics. You've got to have a thick skin in this sort of thing. And from my point of view, they had the chance to say, Howard, you said a stupid thing. But as you quite rightly played the whole interview, I was making the point at the time that, you know, we are being ruled by immigrants and immigration based on the media, the stories, what was going around at the time, all the protests, etc., and the fact that, you know, Keir Starmer was ignoring various things that related to the fact that these protests were going on about immigration and immigrants, and you know, and my point was that I was very proud to say, you know, that Tommy Robinson was one of the few people who were trying to make a difference, to show, to expose what was happening right across the country, not just in Oldham or Rotherham or all those places, that our children were being systematically raped. So to cut a long story short, I was shocked at the time, and you know, I'm glad to be out of the party now, but let me say this quite clearly for everyone listening, I still support Reform UK's policies. And that's where I'm a critical friend with regard to it. But I've said one thing wrong, according to the party, and therefore my face doesn't fit. And I was sent, 3 days before I resigned, a text from a senior member of the party that said, if you don't stop basically talking about Tommy Robinson, you risk being expelled.
Which you obviously didn't want. So you felt there was a very clear line, which was either shut up about Robinson or you're going to be booted out. So you made the decision to leave. And of course, it is odd given free speech is such a priority of Reform UK, or at least we thought it was. But now we have the chairman, Zia Youssef, seeming to imply that folk in the media like me, who are critical friends, I mean, I voted for Reform UK. Come on, I love Nigel in so many ways. I've been so supportive of him. He was a colleague of mine for nearly 3 years at GB News. But it feels like they are so thin-skinned that they cannot take criticism. And I'm sorry, if you want to become the party of government, then you actually need criticism. And I think what Elon Musk did was force the issue on Tommy Robinson. What is quite nuts to me, though, Howard, is that Tommy doesn't want to join the party. He doesn't want to join Reform UK. He just wants the attacks on him from Reform UK to stop.
Well, you're dead right, Dan. My point, as I said, and I've said this on many interviews, including with you, right across from GB News, Talk TV, you name it, and all sorts of places, I've simply said this. I don't know Tommy Robinson. I've never met him. I don't know. All I know is that that man is trying to highlight the problems, these disgusting, these heinous issues of our kids being raped right across the country. And he should be congratulated on that. He doesn't want to join, and I don't think he should join Reform UK. Far from it. I think he should set up his own party, to be honest, and I think he'd get quite a few people, and that's the point. Do you remember the time that Richard Tice said, oh, we don't want that lot to be members of Reform? And that lot who were supporting Tommy, most of them are Reform UK voters.
Yes,
And
although
it's
you
so
told me at the time, Howard, that Nigel had actually admitted to you that Richard Tice had gone too far in his description of
he said he'd gone over the top. He said, and that's when Nigel was talking to me a bit. Obviously, he hasn't spoken to me since. And obviously, Richard feels a bit betrayed by me, he thinks, for mentioning that. But I was so angry from the point of what Richard came out with, that lot. And he's also used the phrase nut jobs as well. This is totally and utterly wrong. The right-hand side of politics is totally disparate. It's totally split. And it needs someone to bring it together. And you've been saying it for a long time. And I don't understand what Nigel's playing at. I respect him. He's done incredible things with Brexit. I've enjoyed his company for 10 years. I've known him. And one reason why Richard asked me to stand as London mayor, well, in fact, he actually was called by Nigel, I understand. And Nigel said, that's the best idea I never had. So, I was definitely, popular. Everyone loved me, etc. But as soon as I was surplus to requirements, i.e. I only came second in the Dover and Deal election after 3.5 weeks campaigned down there with 23% of the vote, I was, totally superfluous. I wasn't worth talking to. And I thought that was disrespectful. But hey, I'm not going to moan about that anymore. I'd like this one to get, buried totally and people understand that I totally for Reform UK. I think they should get into government. I'd love to see them into government unless the Tories get their act together and become a Thatcherite government again, because that's what I am. And then, if we could do that, then fine. But please stop. I mean, I've got so many people contacting me, Dan, from branches, Reform branches around the country. I won't digress some of what they told me, but basically they feel intimidated. They feel as though there's a dictatorship now coming from the centre, the headquarters of Reform. And that's so sad, really.
Well, it is sad. It really is sad. And for me, I think it was Ezra Levent of Rebel News who summed up the choice that Nigel has to make best. And I just want to read you out what he posted on this. It's quite long, but I really, really think it is worth sharing it in full. So Ezra Levent said, by the way, I think Nigel Farage is a great man, certainly one of the most consequential British leaders in a generation. Without him, there would be no Brexit, and his fight against debanking showed great leadership. Frankly, he should be knighted. But I think he's always looking over his shoulder, afraid of being labelled far-right by the regime media. Although he attacks the establishment daily, he still cares too much about what they think of him. There's so much peer pressure in the UK, it's so clubby. And then there's the added layer of classism. Much of the criticism of Tommy, and indeed a reason the thousands of rape victims were ignored, is snaring condescension towards the white working class. In America, Donald Trump fully embraces his outsider status, knowing he could be bigger than those who sneered at him. I think Farage hasn't quite let go of wanting to be on the inside. I see other conservative pundits in the UK who I know are privately supportive of Tommy putting on exaggerated performances of denouncing Tommy. They're not doing that because they believe it, but because they think denouncing Tommy is a very showy manner, and it gives them a sort of insurance policy against being called far right themselves. They're joining a mob against Tommy, lest the mob turn on them. Farage didn't have to endorse Tommy. Tommy wasn't asking for that. He wasn't asking to join their party. But even just raising questions about Tommy's brutal and unprecedented treatment in prison was just too scary for Farage. It would cross a line he hasn't crossed in 30 years of public life. I don't think Farage has to be quite so careful in the era of citizen journalism and social media. I think Elon Musk was inviting Farage to replace his peer group of snobby insiders with a different, bigger, bolder peer group. Farage declined. And I just thought Ezra summed it up perfectly. I was just nodding my head in agreement when I read that for the first time, Howard Cox. And it's very similar to what Dominic Cummings said, that Nigel still cares about going on the Today programme. F them. F the BBC. You don't need them anymore. Just like Trump doesn't need the mainstream media in the US. He proved that.
You're absolutely right. But when I joined Reform UK in 2023, and when I was invited to be London Mayor by Richard Tice, which took a lot of thinking and sitting down with my wife, say, is this the right thing to do? I'm approaching 70. Is this the right thing to do? But because of you, Les, because of Sadiq Khan, what he was doing and ruining London, I was best placed to help that. And I definitely put reform on the map as a result of that. At that point, Nigel wasn't leader. And right up to the election in May of the London Mayor, Nigel still hadn't declared being leader. It wasn't until 4 weeks, when Sunak, ran for the hills and said, right, let's have a general election, that he decided to put his, head on above the parapet. And that's the issue for me. It's all about suiting what's happening. Now, I've said this many, many times to people, I don't follow an individual, I follow the policies. And that's what it's about. And I go back to my point just now, being a good old Thatcherite, with small state, low tax, protecting our borders. That's what reform we're doing. No one else was doing that because we had the uniparties. So from my point of view, that's what I joined and that's what I was promoting. I wasn't promoting Nigel. I was promoting Reform UK.
Absolutely. And that is what a political movement should be. Of course, you do need a charismatic leader. And I think the Americans understand what's going on so much better at the moment. I wanted to show you this very impassioned address from Tim Pool on Timcast, where he was responding directly, not so much to Farage, but more Piers Morgan, who is slowly coming around, I think, when it comes to Tommy Robinson. But Tim Pool explains why the issue in the British media should not be Tommy's indiscretions from years ago. It should be the issues that he is raising. Watch this. But first, everyone's focused on eating better and staying active after the holidays. Personally, I find it tough to cut out constant snacking and junk food, especially in the cold. And goodness me, it has been cold in the UK over the past couple of days. I keep up with my workouts year round, but let's face it, no amount of exercise can outdo a poor diet. Now, this struggle often stems from an imbalanced metabolism, which disrupts hunger hormones and triggers intense cravings for sugars and carbs, causing blood glucose levels to spike. So that's why I take Cellbean by Verso. It's made with ingredients that help regulate blood sugar, curb cravings, and boost metabolism. They also work to shrink existing fat cells and prevent new ones from forming. I've been taking it for over 6 months now and have noticed I feel less hungry throughout the day, which means I'm snacking less. And I'm not alone. Their customers are seeing amazing results. One shared, I'm in my mid-30s and I've been roughly the same weight for years. With these products, I've been able to lose weight and feel amazing physically. Another said, I've had several people comment that I've lost weight and I've really noticed a reduction of fat in my midsection since taking the product. Plus, Verso publishes third-party testing from each batch produced to guarantee you are getting what you pay for. So click the link in the description on YouTube or Rumble, or head on over to buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken when you check out, and you will save 15% on your first order. So I'm just going to repeat the address: buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken. But now, back to the show.
It comes back to this. If Piers or anybody else wants to insult Tommy, my response is, so what? I don't know. I don't care. Explain to me why the one guy that was leading rallies to call out the systemic rape of children was getting locked up and silenced and put in jail. Why weren't you doing it? Why wasn't the UK government doing it? Why weren't the cops doing it? Why was it Tommy Robinson? Oh, he's a con artist? Well, whoop-de-freaking-do. At least we had one con artist, according to you, willing to speak up and inform someone like me. So, I'll say it again. I like Piers, I really do. I've been on the show several times. I look forward to going on again. And maybe he just doesn't understand. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe it's intentional. I don't know. But don't you get it? This is why I don't believe you. The things they were doing to these children, man. These transcripts that came out. They fill me with a rage I have never experienced. The horrors. Man, there's so much dirty stuff in this world. And you say Tommy's a con artist. Fine. Whatever. At least I can thank the con artist for letting me know. Because I would not have known about this if it were not for him.
I mean, Tim Pool gets it, doesn't he, Howard Cox? And by the way, I've been sticking up for Reform UK's MP James McMurdoch, who went to jail when he was 19 years old after an altercation with his girlfriend, totally turned his life around. This guy deserves a second chance. So does Tommy Robinson, actually.
What's you also say about Donald Trump? We've all got this thought. He's going to be the leader of the Western world. This guy's also got a bit of a criminal background, hasn't he? Who cares? What matters at the moment in time is what's happening with these grooming gangs. And I don't call them grooming gangs, I call them rape gangs. And from that point of view, people have got to realise that. And, you know, every person I talk to, I've got huge numbers of people writing to me, emailing me, texting me, WhatsApping me, saying, well done standing up for your principles. I could easily have got into an easy seat. I understand Dover and Deal now, according to electoral calculus, Reform is in the lead. And, you know, obviously I've got a lot to do with that. But I've cooked my goose. There's no way back for me. I'm not worried about that. The important thing is I want people like Tommy Robinson to get some recognition for the good work he's been doing, and also the respect. I don't give a damn about his background. I don't give a damn about it one bit.
No, indeed. And look, I hope that things are going to change over the next couple of years, Howard Cox, because my God, you would be such an incredible MP. You're exactly the sort of candidate that Reform UK needs. Look at what you've done with Fair Fuel. Look at how you've fought for motorists and actually made change over the years. And sometimes that means that Nigel is going to have to put up with someone who might not agree with him on every issue. And that's okay. I think Trump has shown actually there are ways to bring people back into the fold. Marco Rubio is about to be his Secretary of State. Look at some of the things that Marco Rubio said about Donald Trump. So for me, I hope it isn't the end of the road for you in UK politics, but I guess time will tell. But stand by, Howard Cox, because we're going to move on now to this very, very disturbing story over the weekend. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.